welcome to all of you to this IFMA session on remote building operations, which relates to the COVID situation as we're encountering all of us today. Next slide, please. My name is Eric Jaspers. I work for a software company in IWMS called Plan-On Software. I do for them product strategy and innovation. And next to that, I work with IFMA in terms of being a board member of the European Advisory Board, as well as the Research and Benchmarking Institute. Now, I'm joined by very experienced panelists today from two leading companies, being Siemens and Schneider Electric. I would like to start with Jonas, who's the Director of Global Portfolio and Strategy for Building Performance and Sustainability of Siemens. Next to that, we have Ravichandra Ksirsaga, and we can call him Ravi today, Commercial VP, Digital Building Services of Schneider Electric, and his colleague Kenan Dayat, VP Product Management for Infrastructure Building of Schneider Electric. So with this great team, we're going to discuss the topic of today. Next slide, please. Now, the question is, of course, what and why now? This is the program. First, we discuss shortly why. Then we have the views on the topic from both Siemens and Schneider Electric, and move to questions and conversation. You're invited to send in questions if you have, which we will try to basically address, of course, and we will end with that takeaways. Now, first, let's go to why. Next slide, please. Now, it is clear that we are all confronted with unprecedented events around Corona, of course. And then two things seem to be eminent for us all today. First, we need to understand what changes the future will hold for us in our business as this evolves. And I guess we're in a process of ongoing discovery of what this is going to mean. And I think a few of us can also predict what's all happening there, and we'll have to find out as time evolves. But second, we need to understand as well what our current toolboxes provide us with that we might use towards the future and basically addressing this situation. So in this case, and this is just a part of course, the toolbox as being available to you all. But I think we think it's an important part of it. And the aim of this session today is to help you understand the potentials behind tool sets for remote operation that may be going on at this time. Actually, very simple questions came to mind when we thought about having this session today. As we understand with the COVID situation, of course, you have the social distancing. And of course, the relation to remote operations is then a natural one. So what could that mean in terms of keeping us safe? The other question that came across our minds was, okay, when we abandoned all the buildings, which is actually a global situation almost today, how did we leave them behind? And what were the tool sets and what were your options to basically readjust their operations during vacancies? And what are the contributions to high demand environments? So in order for us and the panelists to understand you, who's basically listening in today, I would like to have a poll question towards the audience. And that's, what type of infrastructure are you managing today? Critical infrastructures, hospitals and production types, or lesser critical, let's say, office types of environments. Now, having put that forward, I would like to go to the next slide. Okay, well, for the panelists, it's clear that we have a dominant audience in typical office environments, but still a significant part of them is running production and critical environments as well. So Thank you for that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, we'll be talking about what remote building operations can provide, what type of values, and we will discuss that in terms of a few angles to the subject. First of all, of course, now we are very much concerned with keeping people safe. There's a big chunk there into sustainability as well, as we think perhaps even our understanding of what nature can do to us will help drive the sustainability agenda forward as time moves on even today. Of course, another element to that is people and economics. As we now fight a health problem, the next problem also presents itself already today, which will be, of course, around cost cutting or at least the financial situation in the economy of in times to come. And of course, technology. Now, having said that, I would like to introduce the first panelist to present their views and that's Jonas Fleury on behalf of Siemens. Next slide, please. Jonas.
Good. Thank you very much, Eric, for the introduction. So, as said, my name is Jonas Fleury. I'm with Siemens Smart Building Infrastructure in the headquarters in Switzerland, and I'm responsible for portfolio. And in this, we are focusing also on energy and asset performance services, as we say. I will give you a little bit of snapshot from a more Siemens point of view, how we see smart building or remote building operation. I would like to talk about some customer use cases, also very, I would say, ones that are relevant now in this coronavirus situation, but then also give a little bit on an outlook on what we see, how the future could be on the remote operation of buildings. Next slide, please. So remote building operations for Siemens, I think that's something that we are doing, of course, since many, many years. We have technology that we are using for ourselves, but also technology that we make available for our customers in order that they can do remote building operation. So we have, for our own infrastructure and in order to support our customers, we have more than 35 what we call remote operation centers, which are really located in the country, speak the language of the customer, and they can intervene or monitor the systems of the customers. System could be building automation systems like the Zigo in Siemens, or we have fire safety systems like Synthes or Cerberus, or also fire security systems like Surveillance. So all of these systems we are, on behalf of the customer, we are monitoring, and we can intervene always kind of with the consent of our customer. Also, maybe important recently what we have done, not only kind of these remote operation centers, but we also have put in place some digital service centers, how we call them. So they're really supporting these remote operation centers. They're running analytics at scale. They have domain experts on energy and maintenance, but also we have some data scientists there who can really support on solving a little bit more advanced issues that we might identify. And kind of the basis of all this remote operation at Siemens is, of course, our remote operation solution, which is really a highly secured solution, which is, by the way, also used by the healthcare industry at Siemens. So it's something that we really can rely on, and also our customers hopefully do. When we talk about the use cases, I think from remote building operations, I think there are different use cases that we can talk about. I think one of the I would say the first one or the most common one is really that we are using this remote operation for clarification and also configuration. So supporting the customers when they have an issue, we are getting access to the system. We can change the system. We can provide root cause analysis for the customer in order that their systems are always up and running. And kind of typical things that we are doing from remote are very basic things like changing a set point, for example, or putting a system back to manual or automatic, or also kind of change some schedules in order to cope with the new kind of operational mode that the customer is in. The next one that we also have an example later on is the remote commissioning. It's something that we see more and more coming also in the context of the smart building. So buildings are getting more complex to commission. They are getting a lot of technology in it, and we are using this remote commissioning to really support the commissioning process. But also we have tools in place that we can use, for example, to analyze the conditions and the performance of the buildings before we are handing them over to the customer. The third thing that's something that is very exciting, of course, is the whole optimization and I would say predictive or proactive maintenance support that we can provide. So with kind of the increasing amount of data that we have available from the building systems on the one hand, on this operating system, but also actually from the information technology systems like CMMS systems that you guys are maybe very familiar with, we can derive a lot of insights about how the building is performing and kind of what are the main issues that we should cover. There we are using kind of rules-based analytics. We are using forecasting techniques to identify issues that might not yet be visible as an issue, but we see indications that they come to an issue. We can inform our colleagues on site or the customer to take action before it actually the occupant has recognized that there was an issue. So this is something very important and coming, and it loads a little bit, or it reduces the pain of some of our operational colleagues on site who are kind of loaded with a lot of topics and activities they need to perform, and we can advise them where to prioritize on which tasks. Next slide, please. So as I said, I would like to share a couple of customer cases that are all related actually to the current situation that we are in this sad situation. So the first one is a very common one. So when we had the lockdown, for example, here in Switzerland, it was at least our perception, it happened from one day to another. So we really basically escaped from the offices. We went at home, started our home office procedures. And I think a lot of customers and also operational people actually did the same. And what we experienced that a lot of buildings that are still kind of kept operational as if kind of they will be fully staffed and fully used in this office environment. So what we actually did there is proactively having a look on the energy consumption, having a look at the kind of occupancy information that we have, and then proactively inform the customer to make sure that they are not wasting energy during this time. Then the next topic is a very interesting one. This is about the remote commissioning that we were talking about. The remote commissioning, there was really a true case in Spain very recently. So the hospital, it was already in the commissioning phase. So the hospital was planned to be opened in July. And the issue was kind of because the government of Spain has declared the state of emergency, our engineers and nobody could go on site anymore. So we had to find a way how we could kind of finish and complete the commissioning process from remote. And at the same time, I think it was, of course, due to the high demand of treatment in Spain. So we had to really make sure that this hospital can open up as quickly as possible. And I think what the team did, and it's a kind of a brilliant use case for a remote operation, they really made together with the customers and other colleagues to make it available within 3 days, really doing the commissioning process, which normally takes weeks if we would have been on site. Then I think the example that you see on the right side is another example. It's about the customer, the University Properties of Finland. They are managing more than 230 properties across Finland for different universities. I think in total it's about 1.3 million of square meters under management. And I think they are coping, their kind of facility team, they were really kind of coping with a lot of demand on the maintenance. They had to satisfy their demanding occupants, the students and professors, And so they had to actually make sure that they can cope with this, with all the maintenance activities. And there, kind of, we were using a little bit this last use case that I was referring to. So we are using the analytics in these digital service centers. We are running, we are analyzing this data, and we are providing recommendations to the staff on side of the customer to what should be maintained and what maintenance tasks should come first and which should come second. Interesting in this use case was really the combination of this operational data that we were taking from the HVAC system, but also the combination then with the CMMS data from the maintenance systems to really derive the right actions and to make sure that we are focusing on the most relevant equipment and processes that the customer is concerned. And at the end, kind of course, how to say, the exposure of the on-site staff we could reduce because we could take some of these activities by remote, but also interestingly, the energy consumption went down as well as the customer satisfaction, occupant satisfaction went up. So all in all, I think great use case, which could a little bit an indication to be for the future how it could look like. Next slide, please. On this slide, I would just take a quick look onto the future, how we see it. I mean, nobody knows what the future is, but I think maybe looking back a bit how it was could be an indication of what the future could be. So I would say up to 2010, we were really focusing on automation systems in buildings. It was really the main topic. We were integrating the different automation disciplines. We were put in place the remote operation connections, and kind of this was the focus. I would say in the last 10 years, I would say the focus was very much about smart buildings. Smart buildings, more complex, more also looking at the occupants, and this was the focus of the last 10 years. Still kind of doing some analytics, using construction twins if available, and this was, I think, what we have seen as a smart building. Now, taking it forward, I think it's still on the smart building, but the smart building will become much more self-adaptive, will be self-learning, it will be highly integrated with the electricity grid. It will provide also e-car charging solution and doing load management for energies, and at the same time, of course, still providing additional services for the occupants, which is actually the I would say the essential part of a building. And this is I think what we see, and kind of now what is the impact on the operational or the remote operational aspects of this. I think there are three main topics that we see for the future. The first one, I think, the increasing or the expansion in the domains. So it's not only about HVAC, fire, security, things that we know already, but I think additional topics will come in, like energy, load management, maybe e-car charging support. All of these topics, I think we see there. And the other thing is, as I talked about in the university example, is I think also the increasing data that we are, I think, analyzing from remote, and also types of data. So not only about kind of automation data, but maybe also data that is coming from the grid, from these different disciplines that I was talking about, in order to really optimize the entire infrastructure for the customer. Yeah, and thirdly, I think thinking about all these energy topics that are coming closer to the building or are becoming part of it, I think then also from an operational point of view, the operation is becoming more real time, I would say. So it's really relevant when energy equipment is failing. It's really mission critical for the customer and for the operation. And that's certainly also something that I see will change a bit in this whole remote operation context. That's a little bit kind of a snapshot about kind of how Siemens sees the topics, and happy to hand over to my colleagues from Schneider.
Thank you, Jonas, for this insight. Now I'll directly turn over to Schneider Electric. I think Ravi will take the microphone now. Will you, Ravi?
Yeah. Thank you, Jonas, and I'll present with my colleague Kenam. So my name is Ravi Chandra. I'm VP of Digital Building Services Commercial at Schneider Electric, and I have Kenam with me, who is our VP of Offers. If you could move to the first slide, please, Eric. So I want to start, today's conversation a bit, looking back at efficiency challenges that we were talking about even yesterday. So number one, I mean, data point that we are all facing in our operations, and I'm sure all of you facility managers are looking at it. 75% of buildings life cycle costs are in maintenance and operations. And the key point is by being proactive versus reactive around that maintenance using analytics, remote, we really, and those deep insights that we can get from these different tools, we are significantly increasing the overall efficiency of building. And this is very important because the direction in which we were going and the transformation that was required in that journey was going at a much slower pace. So if I look at those three key challenges, I mean, number one is energy wasted in buildings. I'm just taking one data point here on HVAC systems. 25 to 45% of energy waste on HVAC systems, and you add to that everything around electrical, secure power, UPSs that you have in your operations, the energy that you would be losing. Second data point is the unscheduled maintenance instances. I mean, you look at your operations and you will identify with this figure, where you call your vendors on those unscheduled maintenances and the waste of, costs that you have, and 20 to 40% based on the instances that we have counted. And finally, a bigger challenge, I think the big part of our workforce, service workforce, people who are extremely competent on different systems are going to retire, and they're going to retire as we speak. And it might even happen faster because of the crisis that we are facing. Now, considering the challenges that we face and the opportunities in front of us, some part of this transformation, especially around digital, remote, analytics-driven systems, will really go faster than what we thought. And then looking at crisis, if you go to the next slide, please. When we come to this particular point, where we are connecting today, and the crisis that is facing us, there are three significant points that we are looking at. So number one for us is really that demand. That crisis has brought this different impact based on the customer segments that we address. So there are those critical customer segments, critical facilities where, such as hospitals, data centers, where the demand to keep their operations up and running with the right efficiency level and reliability has gone up by the factor of 2 to 5. While elsewhere, we saw that in this call, some of you are managing also non-critical facilities. In fact, most of you, the demand is not so much, and there are some other aspects that need to be addressed over here. But in all cases, what we also see is there is a reduced on-site staff levels that is available due to different challenges. People are quarantined; they need to address their personal issues at home, etc. The second challenge that we see, and you will all face in the coming days, is limited budgets and cost control scenarios that will be put in place. I think in this scenario, it is important, whatever budget you have, you put it in an area which gives you recurring year-over-year impact on your operations and on your P&L, and likewise the return on investment, what we call. This figure will become extremely important. All of us will get challenged on this because, when you will ask $1, the management will ask you, what do I get in return, which should be a multiplier of that. And finally, and then you all are in the middle of it, and some of you, are losing sleep, which is efficient and reliable operations in the current time. In critical facilities, even more so. We are working with a lot of those customers. So keeping uptime, making sure energy savings are, at the right level, and all the critical assets are fully optimized, and also non-critical assets are optimized so that the energy consumption is set to minimum level over there, in order to reduce those expenses. So those are the three main challenges that we find while working with our customers. So when we go to our solution, which is in the next slide, please, and I'll be high level here. I think the solution that we put in place to optimize your operation, you really need remote operations plan that provides key insights into your building operations by constantly monitoring and detecting faults in the system enabled by that remote connection and analytics. So here in Schneider, what we are providing to our customers is that remote 24/7 support, which is given by our global connected hubs, our bureaus, which provides support around commissioning, maintenance, improvement, and customers can call and leverage those services, plus enabled by analytics-driven platform called Building Advisor, which is cloud-based secure, which provides those dashboards which are real-time and drive actions which directly lead to savings. And then on those, the benefits that we've seen and delivered to our customers, and I'll go into those use cases in the next slide and in following slides. I think number one, most important for us is moving our customers forward in that digital journey and moving from that break fix preventative maintenance towards condition-based maintenance approach. Extremely important, which will decrease the number of unscheduled maintenance that you're looking at. And in today's context, even more important. Even before the problem has occurred, I want to know where the problem could occur, and I want to take an action on that so that I can reduce those instances where I need to intervene and fix the facility. Second is, with this approach, which remote connection plus analytics, 70% of the operation can be performed remotely, which means automated diagnostics, fault detections, optimization opportunities, and some limited support on site to do some visual detection, as well as some replacements that are required, and depending on the system that you're handling. And finally, that will deliver to you up to 20% or even more, depending on the system. But this is what we have delivered: energy cost reduction. And this is very important when you're managing these type of buildings and continuously commissioning those building equipment to drive down costs and bringing in efficiency. And this is what we call a system that will enable that crisis resilient behavior through your operations that you're putting in place. It's extremely important that these critical areas are addressed. Going forward, please. Next slide. So when we look at, the buildings of the future, or the buildings that we are delivering today with our EcoStruxure platform, we have basically enabled remote analytics driven services to our customers globally. So that starts really with that connected product layers, where every product that we are putting in on our customer sites is IoT enabled. Second is, you have a platform that really starts that journey around analytics, which is your system, building operations system. And finally, a layer of cloud-based analytics called Building Advisor, which really drives that real-time data analytics and insights to our customers to drive actions in their operations and drive down costs, bring efficiency. And today we are managing around 430K connected assets globally, 30 million square meters, and we are analyzing 100 billion plus data points. So you can imagine the breadth. I'll call upon Kenam here to share his insight, on the future side of the buildings as well, because with this crisis, what is happening is we are reviewing again, what was supposed to come in a year's time may come even faster. So Kenam.
Thank you, Ravi. And I'll be quick in the interest of time. What is happening in our market, I believe, is happening in 3 waves. The first wave is happened for us about 5 years ago, where we connected all of our systems and we provided analytics to our customers in a very agnostic way. And this is what Ravi was talking about, the remote operations, really focused around fault detection diagnostics. And we started with HVAC, and we have expanded across other assets. The second wave that we're living in right now is the emergence of this semantic tagging and contextualization of information and this concept of digital twin. And with that, what's going to happen is going to enable you to remotely interact with the building in a more efficient way. A very simple example I have is, you can say, show me all thermostats on floor 2 that have a set point above this. and you get that information very quickly. It's something that other systems have. If you look at IT world, they already have that. They've been having it for the past 10 years. It is now emerging in the OT world. And the third wave that personally for me is very interesting, and we're doing a lot of experimentation with that right now, is around artificial intelligence. So AI is going to play a key role in buildings. We are starting with predictive maintenance. So the AI can say, I know next week at 10 a.m. this conference room is going to be full. Therefore, prepare it for that. And then we get into truly autonomous operations, leveraging AI to actually run the control loops of the HVAC systems or the security systems and so on. And these three waves is impacting our roadmap, and I see a very, very exciting emergence of innovation in the coming years.
And then some customer cases on remote services. I'll stay quick on this. I think as this pandemic unfolds globally, number one priority for us is to help our communities and our critical customers such as healthcare, and we are working with a lot of healthcare facilities globally, but I want to, especially NHS in UK, we are providing remote alarm support, monitoring support. Eric?
Just a friendly warning for the conversation. We need to close down in a minute or so.
Sure. Thanks, Eric, for keeping the time. Yeah, we are over time. So with NHS, we are working on remote alarm services, critical assets, as well as optimizing their system. So air exchange, pressure regimes, filtration, temperature, humidity, which plays a critical role on controlling the virus, and how we are setting up those different ICU units in hospital. Likewise, with data center, we are managing a lot of different cloud customers, but I'm putting one here where we are providing remote services globally across their 70 plus sites, 24/7, 365 days. So it includes maintenance as well as remote software upgrades. And then finally, life sciences is another segment where we are working with a global biopharmaceutical company, 4 countries, 86 sites. And this is really around that condition-based maintenance and optimization approach that I was mentioning, which is delivering year on year savings to the customers. So it's not something that is a concept, it's actually in practice and delivering value to our customers. So I think I'll end there and hand over to Eric for further panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Going to the questions, I had some interesting questions in already, so I would like to invite the panel to reflect on some of them. Yeah. I think in terms of one question that was basically hitting my eyes is from Tom Suro, and basically relating to this COVID situation. He actually says, and that was one of the things in my mind as well, to be honest, both companies basically put in technologies in buildings to do climate management, indoor climate management and stuff like that. That's a key function of the infrastructures as you provide for buildings. Now, the question of Tom is also around it. So what type of role does the internal climate potentially play in fencing of risks around COVID infection and stuff like that? Tom says, typically, he says, what temperatures do buildings need to be maintained to destroy CV19 in the HVAC system? Is it even possible? So what can we as FM leaders do to make sure our existing spaces are safe for partial return in the view of this technology? So and perhaps even if you can, where can people find basic materials to understand how climate management basically relates to this problem? If any one of you wants to reflect on it, just raise your hand. Okay.
Maybe I can go first. Yes, I think it's a very relevant question, and I think, to be honest, I think we haven't maybe paid too much attention to this, and then now it's an eye opener with this crisis that we have. I think if I understand the question correctly, so what can you do today, or what can we contribute from the operation to avoid or to actually fight the virus spreading inside the building. And I think there's a little bit to be open. There's a little bit of debate between experts. What is the right thing? I think that the learnings that I have so far is kind of temperature might not make the trick here. There are a little bit debates about kind of humidity, whether humidity plays a role, and we could control the humidity. Kind of when I look at Switzerland, I just read this morning. There was this kind of I don't know exactly how it is called, kind of a body that is proposing how to do, and they are really saying kind of for the time being, although it's kind of against spending of the energy, it's kind of how they're really using as much fresh air as you can from the outside. Of course, it's not what we are used to, because we always wanted to save energy and to make sure that we can preheat and pre-cool the air again.
Thank you very much. Now, Kanan, I think you raised your hand.
Yes, very quickly. I think everything that Jonas says makes perfect sense. What I would say is that it's very early to make any decisions on that. I don't think anyone knows. However, the concept of air circulation is very important. And the challenge that buildings have today is that the granularity of sensor deployments is very low. Therefore, having visibility is a challenge. Therefore, you should look for deployment of IoT sensors. We have in our portfolio IoT sensors that are battery operated, wireless, deploy in a matter of minutes. And then you have full visibility of CO2 levels, for example, or VOC or ppm across different spaces. And that's a start. Again, I don't think it's a solution. I don't think anybody knows the answer. But to Jonas's point, having good quality air circulation and air quality is a good start.
And just to add, Eric, what we are, I cannot answer as the other panelists said. I think there is still some work needs to be done on this topic, but we can take some parallel from healthcare. What is happening in hospitals today when we are looking at HVAC systems and how we are configuring them. I think number one, temperature and humidity, the levels that we maintain in those recovery rooms have to be comfortable. And they also impact viruses and medical equipment that are maintained over there. So correct temperature and humidity levels, it's mentioned that 40 to 50% of relative humidity needs to be maintained. That is the best level to combat COVID-19, number one. So that is something we are asking our teams also to configure. Second is air exchange rates. So obviously the rate of air exchange, it's provided by ASHRAE some guidelines, and facilities need to ensure that they are meeting those minimum needs and even considering increasing those in the current times. This could impact obviously the energy costs as we are increasing those exchanges. Finally, pressure regimes are another one. When you are isolating those patients, they should be at negative pressures, and how you're looking and configuring those are also important. And finally, filtration, air circulation that was mentioned is an important part of providing that clean air that is required. I think over time we'll have clear guidelines around that for commercial buildings as well. But I think learning has already started. If you look at healthcare, it's already started.
Thank you. Something that the audience came with as well, and it's actually in my mind as well, if we look at the air quality and its properties towards this COVID situation. What I seem to, there seems to be some questions about why would we not consider using ultraviolet in terms of an inherent part of the infrastructure to basically address this situation? Is there any notion about how effective that could be today? And the other question in my mind is, when I look to the situation of mouth caps, we are looking at filtering. So is there any information on different type of filter systems that could be embedded in your systems to basically cope with this situation? Anyone to respond on that? Jonas, please.
You need to unmute. Yeah. So again, I think it's very hard to give specific recommendations in this situation, because we really need to test it out how this all works with this virus also. And I think what we have used these ultraviolet solutions also in the past. That's something that we are using, especially in this kind of high critical infrastructure. But I think there is also kind of a technology evolvement that we are observing at the moment, and we are not yet clear in which direction this really then goes. We are seeing bipolar ionization kind of, how to say, systems that are coming up, which, so some of them even kind of, how to say, they can how to say, protect the surfaces. I think we need to test it out. What we are doing with the big hospital here in Switzerland, we are kind of literally trying to test which of these solutions really bring the results. To be very honest, we don't know it as of today.
Well, what I can at least add from personal experience, we were looking at the contamination issues for hospitals. Then we went to Philips Medical Systems and we asked them the question about UV, the use of UV in order to basically work on bacteria. And what they stated, and that was for me at least an eye-opener, is that UV will not kill anything. It will just disable them to basically replicate. And but that was in bacteria. So I don't know even if it works with viruses at all. I think that's something interesting. Is there any material in your view available on that?
No, there is, as Jonas mentioned, UV is one. There is ionization, there is oxidization. There could be, disinfection of, there are different technologies available. But as we speak, I think there is a lot of, discussion, and obviously some of them will take importance and get integrated in the roadmaps and in the products that we'll bring to our customers. And then most of them will be automated. The way today we are managing our, for example, our air handlers. How air handlers are handled today, and I think going forward we'll be looking at disinfection those air handlers and making sure they are managing those in an automated mode rather than something manual. So yeah, I think there's a lot will happen over here. And then we need to look back just quickly. We need to look back at another parallel, which is terrorist attacks, which change the security system. So here, with this pandemic, even bigger impact will happen on these type of technologies. Yeah.
So can I put this forward to Kainam, as you are basically into road mapping the technologies that we put into buildings? Now, this situation around COVID is basically resketching the landscape. So I think health and well-being, it's pure contamination, fighting contamination. In what way do you expect this to influence the roadmap for building technologies on the longer run?
That's a very good question. So I think number one, on the HVAC and ventilation side, you're going to see a lot of more sensor deployments, more visibility into the building environment. One interesting aspect of at least the office space that we are seeing emerging is proactive management of this social distancing as we go back to work. And there are systems deployed today that they can count people, they can locate people. And with that, you can analyze movement and just see proactively if people are following the social distancing guidelines. And if they are not, maybe send announcements or do different proactive management of that. So again, I think a lot of interesting aspects of this thing is going to emerge. But those are the two areas that I see impacting our roadmap as we speak.
Okay, thank you. Jonas, do you want to reflect on this as well?
Maybe just kind of to add to what Cayman already said, so I completely agree. I think maybe another aspect that I see would evolve is also a bit how do we communicate with the occupants in the building. I think it's good to have kind of safe HVAC systems, but I think we need to bring the confidence to the occupants to say, actually, I know what the conditions are, and I actually I am feeling completely safe in these conditions. And that's maybe some aspect that I would see we will push much more. We started with this comfy in Siemens, but I will see much more communication directly to the actual users of the building.
Okay. As a response, because you basically, and this is we're going towards the end of the session now, I guess. You are touching on the element of trust, future trust in a safe environment as we provide in buildings. One of the questions was, do we use biofilters in HVACs? One of you. Who wants to respond to that?
Well, I can respond by saying that I don't have a good answer for that, but we are working with several companies, one leading one in the Bay Area, that are looking at these areas of biofiltering and proactive management of filters in buildings. So it's some area that we are looking at.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we're moving towards the end of this session. I would like to thank you all for sharing your insights. I think as a takeaway, as I can just basically put it together, is we have been working towards buildings in terms of its sustainability, its smartness, and I guess as a punchline, we will need smartness in the future as it comes to providing a safe place in these types of contamination situations, because its current situation proves it's crucial, I guess, for us moving on, providing the workplaces that we can continue working in also under these types of situations. I'm very curious of what the industry will be putting forward as we move on over time in this. Now, for the audience, the next session next week of IFMA around the COVID situation will be about return to work. So we happily invite you to come there as well and learn again from insights of knowledgeable people in our industry. Next slide, please. World Workplace, one of those events that were actually cancelled because of the COVID situation in the physical in Amsterdam, is now having a virtual event 6 to 8 through 8 May, where we will be discussing a lot of topics, of course, which are influenced by what we experience today around the COVID situation. Well, next slide. Having said that, IFMA provides you with a resource center for all types of questions and information around the COVID situation as it evolves. You're quite welcome to visit there. And with that, I would like to thank Jonas, Kainem, and Ravi for their contributions today. I hope the audience had an informative time with us today. Thank you very much. And this is the end of the session. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.